Now, moments like this just absolutely break my heart. Darnell Richmond, known as the greatest player of all time, he has basically broken every NHL record imaginable. However, things have taken a turn for Darnell Richmond. In his last game, he tore his ACL, MCL, PCL. He suffered 6 concussions at the same time, and he even sprained his index finger, which might be the worst injury of them all. But because of all of these injuries, Darnell Richmond has dropped to a 0 overall. He has a 36 in every attribute category. No teams are interested in signing Darnell Richmond. However, Darnell's not going to go out like this. He is going to force himself onto an NHL team, and he is going to return to his original greatness. And how's he going to do that? Well, every point that Darnell Richmond records, that's going to be one attribute upgrade. Before Darnell Richmond makes it back to the NHL, though, we do need to figure out which team he's going to be joining. So we have a wheel of all 32 NHL teams. Which team is willing to take a shot on Darnell Richmond? It looks like he's going to be joining the Edmonton Oilers. This seems pretty fitting because I don't think Darnell Richmond can really make their bottom 6 scoring any worse. Now, Darnell Richmond has made his way back into the NHL, starting on the Edmonton Oilers, but I feel like it only makes sense for Richmond to start off on the 4th line. Like, he isn't a prime Darnell Richmond anymore that can play first line minutes, so he has to start at the very bottom, and he has to grind his way back up, back to his former greatness. So he's going to be playing alongside Kasperi Kapanen and Adam Henrique this season. I'm not really expecting Darnell Richmond to do too much, but we know this man's capable of greatness, so I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up 5 goals this season. I'm completely yapping though. This man's going to be lucky if he even picks up 1 point. But luckily, points aren't going to be the sole way that Richmond can get upgrades, but we'll discuss that later. First, we have to simulate the entire season and see how this Edmonton Oilers team is going to perform with Darnell Richmond. Now, while we go ahead and watch Darnell absolutely dominate these 4th line minutes and completely take over the league, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 90k subs by the end of the month, and every sub is greatly appreciated, so make sure you hit the button down below right now. Now, as much as I want to be positive and as much as I want to gas up the GOAT and Darnell Richmond, we do have to remember he's a 0 overall, so he's definitely going to hold this Edmonton Oilers team back, but not quite as much as I thought, because they're somehow going to make the playoffs with a 0 overall in the bottom 6. Now, that's actually low-key impressive. McDavid, Draisaitl, this might be one of your greatest seasons just because of what you were able to do with Darnell Richmond on the team. Now, when it comes to Darnell Richmond's numbers, what are we going to be looking at this season? 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points, 26 shots as well. Yeah, Richmond's definitely surpassing expectations. Now, I haven't fully explained exactly how upgrades are going to be working, but when it comes to Darnell Richmond, each goal he scores is going to be 2 upgrades. So that means he received 4 upgrades from goals this season. He's also going to receive 1 upgrade per assist, and because he had 2 helpers this season, that means he's picking up 2 attribute upgrades. And then when it comes to shots that Darnell Richmond takes, for every 4 shots, that's going to be 1 attribute upgrade. So from this elite regular season right here from Richmond, he's going to be receiving 12 attribute upgrades. However, he's actually receiving more than that, because for every attribute upgrade he receives during the postseason, that's going to be worth double. So goals are now worth 4 in the postseason, assists are worth 2, and for every 2 shots he takes, that's 1 upgrade point. Now, we have to remember, Darnell Richmond is still a 0 overall, so I highly doubt he's doing too much during the postseason, but he is going to pick up 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points. He's also taking 5 shots. So when Darnell's return to the NHL after just 1 season, he's going to be walking away with 20 attribute upgrades. That's going to be helping this king a ton. Now, Darnell Richmond, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is you receive 20 attribute upgrades, and that means we're going to get your offensive awareness up to a 56. However, here's the bad news. The Edmonton Oilers no longer want you on the team. After your performance on the 4th line, they said, nah, we're done with Darnell Richmond. We don't want him on our team anymore. So that means you're going to have to join a new NHL team. But you know what? We're perfectly fine with that. If you don't appreciate what Darnell Richmond brings to the team, he doesn't even want to be on your team. The next team taking a swing at Darnell Richmond is going to be the Vancouver Canucks. They see the potential in a guy like Darnell, so it looks like they're going to be bringing him in next. So Darnell, you're going to be changing Pacific Division teams. You're going to be moving over to the Vancouver Canucks, but they're appreciating you a little bit more, and Darnell wants to be on a team that appreciates him. So Darnell, you're going to have some different line mates this season. You're going to have Linus Karlsson and Drew O'Connor at your side. Once again, I'm not really expecting you to do too much on the 4th line, but I wouldn't mind a 5-goal campaign from you, but I honestly don't think that's going to be possible. Okay, now I think we have to accept that last season was an absolute fluke. Like, when Darnell Richmond's a 0 overall, he negatively impacts the team more than he actually helps the team. So the fact that we made the playoffs in year number 1 was an absolute shock. This season, yeah, we were the worst team in the entire league. The Vancouver Canucks were the worst team in the entire league. Darnell Richmond was holding this team back too much. Are we really surprised at that? Not really. Like, he's still a 0 overall. He doesn't really have too much going for him. 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points, 39 shots. This is kind of what I was expecting, but he scored 2 game-winning goals. Darnell Richmond picked up 2 game-winning goals. How on earth did that happen? But regardless of whether or not Darnell Richmond's picking up game-winning goals, it doesn't really matter. He's going to be receiving 15 attribute upgrades, and of course, he's not getting any additional upgrades from the postseason because he's not making the postseason. And that is an absolute shame for Darnell, because besides becoming a 99 overall, the side challenge for this video is winning a Stanley Cup. Richmond has to become a 99 overall and win a Stanley Cup, and if he doesn't do that, I will burn my Ivan Demidov rookie card. I'm obviously not going to do that. If he doesn't win a Stanley Cup and become a 99 overall at the same time, it would be an absolute shame. But yeah, I would be insane to burn that card. So Darnell Richmond, you receive 15 attribute upgrades. We're going to add that to your offensive awareness, of course. We're going to get that up to a 71. And maybe next season you'll be able to pick up more than 2 goals, because it's back-to-back seasons now where you've only picked up 2 goals. With that being said, though, you're not going to be scoring those goals on the Vancouver Canucks, because they have informed me they want nothing to do with Darnell Richmond moving forward. They saw how much this man held their franchise back, and they said, nah, get this man off the books. We don't want to ever see him wear a Vancouver Canucks jersey again. And Darnell Richmond, he's taking that personally. Every game he plays against the Vancouver Canucks moving forward, he's scoring a hat trick in every one of those games. So Richmond's got a chip on his shoulder. He will not stand for that type of disrespect. It looks like he's going to be taking his talents to another Pacific Division team, the 3rd straight Pacific Division team. This one's going to be the San Jose Sharks. And if I'm being honest, I think this team is going to be okay if Darnell Richmond doesn't absolutely dominate. Now, the San Jose Sharks aren't expected to win a Stanley Cup this season. This team is not expecting to do anything crazy. So Darnell Richmond, they don't care if you suck this season. If you don't perform with the best, then they're not too worried. I also feel like it wouldn't hurt if I played you on the 3rd line this season. Normally, I've been playing you on the 4th line when it comes to every other team, because they're a lot more competitive. They have some more superstars here. But when it comes to San Jose, I feel like there's not really that much of a difference between the 4th line and the 3rd line. If you play on the 3rd line, you'll get some more minutes this season. So yeah, Richmond, you're going to play some 3rd line minutes this season. You're not really going to hold this San Jose Sharks team back too much. Honestly, if anything, you're probably going to make them slightly better. That's a lie, but you get the point. Now, when it comes to the San Jose Sharks, I was fully expecting them to be the worst team in the entire league. That is not the case. A 35-40-7 record is significantly better than what I was expecting. I was thinking they would only win like 25 games, especially if Darnell Richmond is playing significant minutes for this team. But apparently he's not holding them back that much. 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points. He's also picking up 50 shots this season. Richmond, you were exceeding absolutely everyone's expectations this season. The fact that you were minus 46, that doesn't surprise anyone. I'm actually a little surprised it wasn't worse than this. But through this season right here, Richmond's going to be receiving 25 attribute upgrades. We're almost ready to max out his offensive awareness. And once we're done with that, then we'll start working on his shooting attributes. When it comes to our Stanley Cup champs, that's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning, beating the St. Louis Blues in 7 games. The 2025 St. Louis Blues made to the Cup final. Yeah, I don't know about that. And we're beating the Winnipeg Jets in the conference finals. Okay, I think we should chill a little bit. So it's going to be 25 attribute upgrades to his offensive awareness. We're going to get that up to a 96 for Darnell Richmond. Now, when it comes to next season for Richmond, he actually doesn't hate the San Jose Sharks. You know what? They sat down at the table with him. They discussed the future. They're going to head a different direction without him on the team. But you know what? They didn't completely rip on him. They were respectful to Darnell Richmond, so he has no hate towards the San Jose Sharks. The Vancouver Canucks, on the other hand, were preying on their downfall. So shout out to all the love the San Jose Sharks gave us. No hate towards them whatsoever. We're going to be moving on from one rebuilding team to another. It looks like we got the Chicago Blackhawks up next. Richmond and Connor Bedard on the top line together, they'd be working magic. But unfortunately, Richmond's not that guy anymore. Now, Darnell Richmond, you're not going to be playing on the 2nd line this season. Chicago has a bit more depth than the San Jose Sharks, or at least when it comes to overall depth, they have a bit more. So you're going to be down to the 4th line once again, but I don't think that's going to stop you too much. You have a 96 in offensive awareness. You're going to be in the right spots at the right time, and that's why you're going to be picking up a couple more goals. Now, for the 3rd straight season, Darnell Richmond's once again going to be missing the postseason. The Chicago Blackhawks, though, a 36-40-6 record. I can't really complain about any of these records so far, except for the Vancouver Canucks record. I will complain about that one. But when it comes to Chicago and San Jose, I'm not expecting these teams to do anything crazy when it comes to the season simulation, especially when they basically still have a 0 overall and Darnell Richmond on the team. Okay, maybe I will complain a little bit. Richmond had 1 point this season. He only took 20 shots, so we're going to be receiving 6 attribute upgrades. I will definitely complain about what happened this season. Richmond only recording 6 attribute upgrades. Now, what are we talking about here? Now, normally the NHL teams are informing informing Darnell Richmond that he's not going to be coming back to the team. That's not the case in this situation. Darnell Richmond just told the Chicago Blackhawks he's not coming back to their team. He wants nothing to do with Chicago moving forward. He's going to take his 6 attribute upgrades and he's going to pack his bags and leave Chicago. So Darnell's leaving Chicago. His bags are packed. He actually wants to leave the West completely. He wants to go to an Eastern Conference team, and it looks like the New York Islanders are going to take a shot on him. So Richmond's going to be taking his talents to the Eastern Conference. He's going to be joining the New York Islanders, a team that's in a very interesting spot right now. Like, I feel like they're in the middle of a rebuild, but they're not really rebuilding. I don't really know how to explain the New York Islanders. Matt Schaefer is still an 80 overall, and we're in November. I just want to point that out. I'm not 100% sure, but have we actually gotten a true roster update when it comes to overalls yet? Like, we're halfway through November and we haven't seen anything yet. That's a little bit surprising. I feel like overalls should have been up by now, but maybe I'm tripping. Darnell Richmond, welcome to the island. Let's see what you're able to accomplish with this team. Now, the New York Islanders were much better than expected, but unfortunately, we're just going to be missing out on the postseason. We were only 3 points back in making the playoffs. Richmond was craving for another Stanley Cup run. He was looking to dominate in the postseason once again. Meanwhile, what was he doing during the regular season? 5 goals and 0 assists for only 5 points. Matt Schaefer had 15 points. That's all I needed to see. Matt Schaefer, 15 points. 15 points in 82 games. How many points does he have right now? This actually couldn't have worked out any more perfect. So far in 18 games, Matt Schaefer has 7 goals and 8 assists for 15 points. He has 15 points in 18 games. In our season simulation, he just had 15 points in 82 games. You can't make this up. But regardless of whether or not this game is disrespecting Matt Schaefer, because they 1000% are, Darnell Richmond's going to be walking away with a handful of upgrades. 21 upgrades to be exact. He's receiving 10 from goals and then 11 from shots. But no, that's actually crazy work. 15 points for Matt Schaefer in 82 games. Meanwhile, in real life, he has 15 points in 18 games. Nah, the disrespect is a little bit crazy. Now, when it comes to the 21 attribute upgrades I'm going to be given to Darnell Richmond, I think we're just going to keep this very simple. We're going to spend all of them on wrist shot accuracy, and the reason for that is if you can hit the goaltender more, that means he's going to have more shots, therefore lead to more attribute points. I think that makes a lot of sense, so that's what we're going to go with. Also, Richmond's going to be leaving the Islanders because he can't believe the disrespect put on Matt Schaefer. He doesn't want to have to witness that again. Like, that Matt Schaefer disrespect that we had to witness firsthand was absolutely crazy. It might finally be time for Darnell Richmond to make it back to the postseason. He's going to be joining the Dallas Stars. Not only is this a team where Darnell should pick up more points, but it's a team that he should see some postseason success with. Now, it's been a little while before Darnell Richmond has seen some postseason action, but he's going to be joining the Dallas Stars, and I fully believe that this team's going to make a postseason run. They've had themselves a pretty solid team. The defense isn't looking too bad. They got themselves a great goaltender in the Otter, and with Darnell Richmond on the bottom 6, what could possibly hold them back other than Darnell Richmond himself? Now, Richmond had dreams of making it back to the postseason with the Dallas Stars. They said, nah, we're going to suck this season. A 35-39-8 record. They have already kicked Darnell Richmond off the team. They said, we're not keeping you on this team anymore. We have Stanley Cup aspirations, and you are holding us back far too much. Richmond only 3 goals this season, but he did take 78 shots, so I guess upping the shot accuracy was definitely the right move. However, even though he did take 78 shots, he only scored 3 goals, so that's going to result in 25 attribute upgrades once again. I was really thinking Richmond was going to have a chance at making the postseason. Like, this man made the playoffs in year number 1 with the Edmonton Oilers. Since then, he hasn't even sniffed the playoffs. The Rangers are Stanley Cup champions. They're taking down the Vegas Golden Knights. Darnell, you got to get back to some postseason action. So Darnell has been booted off the Dallas Stars. They want nothing to do with him moving forward. The wrist shot accuracy is now up to an 85. But you know what? Darnell's fine with not being on the Dallas Stars anymore. He didn't even want to be with them to begin with. Like, you think you're hurting Darnell's feelings by kicking him off the team? Nah, he didn't even want to be there to begin with. The St. Louis Blues, on the other hand, that's where Darnell always wanted to play. Now, I'm very familiar with my St. Louis Blues team, so I know exactly where Darnell should play in this lineup. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change these lines slightly, and basically, Darnell Richmond, you're going to play first line minutes alongside Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. You can't make us any worse, because the team is already terrible. Yeah, like, imagine having a 2-goal lead, and then blowing that 2-goal lead, and then later in the third period, you regain that 2-goal lead. And then you lose in a shootout because you blew another 2-goal lead. You blew multiple 2-goal leads in the same game, but not to one of the best teams in the entire league. No, you did it to the Philadelphia Flyers. No disrespect to the Philadelphia Flyers, but if we did that to Colorado or Edmonton, I would understand it. To the Philadelphia Flyers, a little bit surprising. Also, why are we winning games? This team should be atrocious. Now, when I originally put Darnell Richmond on the first line alongside Robert Thomas and Buchnevich, I was expecting this team to only win like 20 games. So I will definitely take a 33, 39, and 10 record. That is very surprising. That's really all I can say. I'm stunned at that record. Obviously, the first line is not going to produce. Like Robert Thomas and Buchnevich were stuck with an injured Darnell Richmond. He's not the player that he used to be, but he is going to see a lot of success this season. 18 goals, 1 assist for 19 points, 201 shots taken. I knew once I moved him up to the first line, he was playing with better players and getting more minutes, that his stats would look a lot better, but I definitely wasn't expecting this because at the end of the day, bro is still a 0 overall player. He really doesn't have that good of attributes, but after that incredible season from Richmond, 87 attribute upgrades, we're going to be able to max out his wrist shot accuracy. We're probably going to be able to max out his wrist shot power. Darnell Richmond's about to have the best wrist shot in the game, but he's not going to be able to do anything else. Now I want to thank the St. Louis Blues for the opportunity that they gave Robert Thomas. We're maxing out his wrist shot accuracy, we're going to max out his wrist shot power, and then we're going to be left with 10 attribute upgrades. So I'll put 5 on slap shot accuracy, 5 on slap shot power. Darnell Richmond had a great time in St. Louis. They appreciated what he brought to the team. He appreciated the opportunity they gave him. But Richmond's decided that he's going to leave the St. Louis Blues. He wants to take his talents to another team, but he will not forget what St. Louis did for him, giving him an opportunity to play some first line minutes. He'll never forget that. So it's nothing but love for the St. Louis Blues, giving Darnell the opportunity he's been waiting for. Only a respectful franchise like the St. Louis Blues would do that. We're going to be moving back over to the Eastern Conference as Richmond's going to be taking his talents to the Detroit Red Wings. Now the St. Louis Blues might have given Darnell Richmond a chance on the first line. However, the Detroit Red Wings aren't going to be doing that. Darnell Richmond's going to be stuck on the fourth line alongside Berggren and Andrew Kopp. He is going to have a little bit of support here, but don't expect Richmond to be picking up 18 goals again. Now I'm starting to think the reason that we're not making the playoffs is Darnell Richmond isn't playing high enough in the lineup. I know he's not a superstar by any means, and he doesn't have the greatest attributes nor the greatest overall of all time, but you know what he has? Grit. And he also has heart. And because of those two things, I think Richmond can start seeing a lot more success. 30 goals, 1 assist for 31 points, 154 shots taken this season. He might still be an incredibly low overall, but he's an incredibly low overall that can score goals. Like Darnell Richmond might have just led the team in goals this season. He did, or at least he was tied with Alex Breakout for 30 goals. One of these guys was playing 10 minutes per night. The other guy was probably playing 21. He was actually playing 18, but he was playing 8 more minutes per night than Darnell Richmond was, but Richmond had the same amount of goals as him. Yeah, moving forward, Richmond, I'm going to have you playing at the very minimum top 6 minutes. I think you've earned it based on your production so far. So Richmond's moving up the lineup. He's about to start receiving a ton more attribute upgrades. The Montreal Canadiens are Stanley Cup champions, taking down the 2025-2026 Calgary Flames. I had to mention what year it was because the Calgary Flames are currently one of the worst teams in the entire league, but in this season simulation, they're making it all the way to the Cup final. Now, Darnell has nothing bad to say about the Detroit Red Wings. They gave him an opportunity to play. He played some fourth line minutes, but he produced in those fourth line minutes. 30 goals for Richmond this season. We definitely can't complain about that production, and because of all that production, he's going to have an 82 in his slap shot power, a 99 in his slap shot accuracy. He is one of the best goal scorers in the game. The only problem is he sucks at absolutely everything else. So moving forward, we should probably start working on some of his other attributes. So Darnell's just about one of the greatest goal scorers in NHL history, but he still can't do anything else. Maybe once he joins the Minnesota Wild, he's going to be able to shape some of his other stats, and he might even learn to skate. Nah, that would be crazy. Darnell Richmond knowing how to skate and score goals, he would immediately become an 80-goal scorer. Alright, so Darnell Richmond, moving forward, you're getting top 6 minutes. You're going to be playing on the second line alongside Joel Eriksson and Matt Zuccarello this season. We're looking to make it back to the postseason. We haven't seen any postseason action since year number 1, but that's about to change right here. Now, there's not really too much I can say about this team other than I'm absolutely heartbroken. We made the postseason. That's great. Kirill Kaprizov, he led the way with 88 points. That's fantastic. Darnell Richmond just had the best season of his career. 42 goals, 3 assists for 45 points. He took 226 shots this season, resulting in 5 game-winning goals. Bro was absolutely dominating. So you might be wondering, why exactly am I so heartbroken this season? Well, the Minnesota Wild performed in the postseason, but they just didn't perform good enough because in the Stanley Cup final, they fell to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Out of all teams to lose to in the Stanley Cup final, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs taking us down. No, there was a handful of teams I would have been okay losing to. The Toronto Maple Leafs certainly aren't one of them. But with Darnell Richmond making it into the playoffs, he is going to be receiving a couple more attribute upgrades. But when the lights were the brightest, Richmond did not step up whatsoever. He did have 7 goals though for 7 points, so it's not act like he was a complete bum. But I was expecting a little bit more from him. So after calculating the totals from Darnell Richmond's regular season attribute upgrades and his postseason attribute upgrades, he's going to be walking away with 211 attribute upgrades. I can confidently say after this season, he's no longer going to be a 36 overall. Now through all the attribute upgrades that Darnell Richmond received, we're going to be able to max out a handful of attributes. Slapshot power, that's now up to a 99. Passing, we're going to get that to a 99 as well. And then I think we're also going to upgrade his speed to a 99. So after maxing out these 2 attributes, Darnell Richmond's still going to be a 36 overall, but that's perfectly fine because watch his overall skyrocket now. We're going to upgrade his defensive awareness and watch the overall climb. Darnell Richmond is still 36 overall. Okay, I'm very surprised at this. I thought by now he wouldn't be a 36 overall. I guess there are still a lot of attributes that are basically 0 overalls. Besides skating and shooting, this man still really can't do too much, but after maxing out all these attributes, we still are left with 5 attribute upgrades, so let's get acceleration up to a 41. Even after all those attribute upgrades, Darnell Richmond's still 36 overall, and because of that, the Minnesota Wild don't want him on the team again. Even though he was a fantastic performer for them, they want somebody with a more diverse skill set, and not just somebody who can only shoot the puck. So it's time for Darnell Richmond to find his new home. Where is he going to be taking his talents to next? The Carolina Hurricanes is a very interesting one because this team could desperately use a superstar goal scorer like Darnell, so I think he's going to fit in perfectly with this team. So Darnell Richmond is going to be switching conferences. He's taking his talents over to the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's going to be teaming up with Logan Stankoven and Taylor Hall in the second line. Ehlers, Sebastian Aho, and Seth Jarvis is going to hold down the top line. I think this team can make a deep postseason push. They have all the right pieces. They've added an elite goal scorer in Darnell Richmond. You know for a fact this team's going to keep the puck out of the net, but now with Darnell Richmond, they're going to be scoring even more goals. The sky's the limit for this team. Now with the addition of Darnell Richmond, although he is still only a 36 overall, that doesn't matter. He's going to help lead the Carolina Hurricanes to second in the entire league, a 49-24-9 record. The dominance of Darnell Richmond cannot be ignored. However, outside of goal scoring right now, this man really can't do too much. 42 goals, 11 assists for 53 points, 228 shots taken this season. He was a dominant force. However, there is still one main issue with Darnell. He is unplayable defensively. When he is in the defensive zone, he is an absolute liability, and that's going to lead to the Tampa Bay Lightning taking down the Carolina Hurricanes in 7 games. So clearly, we know what we have to do moving forward. We have to start working on Darnell's defensive attributes. We know this man can score goals, and he can even skate a little bit, but when he's on the ice, they just can't seem to keep the puck out of the net. In saying that though, he had 14 goals in 19 games, and he was plus 11 in the process, so maybe he's not as bad defensively as we think. Nah, what am I talking about? Darnell is the worst defensive player in the league right now. He just hasn't recovered from his injuries, but just wait until he receives his attribute upgrades because he's going to be receiving 239. So as I just mentioned, we are going to focus on improving Darnell's defensive attributes, but the first thing we have to do is max out his acceleration, so let's get that up to a 99. After maxing out his acceleration, we can max out 2 more attributes. So what attributes are we going to be looking at? Shot blocking has to be one of them, and I think the other is going to be stick checking. So we got shot blocking up to a 99. Now it's time to get stick checking up to a 99, and through doing this, Darnell is no longer a 36 overall. We now have him at a 38 overall. Nothing's going to stop this man moving forward. However, before we move on, we still are left with 55 attribute upgrades. So how about we get his deking up to a 91? Darnell Richmond is going to be a 40 overall heading into next season, or never mind, he's going to be a 39 overall. I was thinking 55 attribute upgrades were going to be enough to get him to a 40 overall. I guess that's not the case. Richmond, you're going to be playing one more season in the 30 overall range. After that, you're going to be a 40 overall, then a 50 overall, then a 60 overall, and it's only a matter of time before you get back into your prime and become a 99 overall again. But like usual, Darnell's going to be switching teams once again. He enjoyed his time in Carolina, but he wants to go team up with one of the best players in the NHL, so we're going to have Nathan MacKinnon and Darnell Richmond on the same team together. No, there's a possibility that team goes 82-0. Now, as a 39 overall, Darnell Richmond probably shouldn't be playing on the top line, but I just can't pass up on the chance to have him and Nathan MacKinnon play alongside each other. A 96 overall and a 39 overall, but Darnell Richmond doesn't play like a regular 39 overall. He's going for 50 goals this season, and I think these two guys alongside each other are going to be able to do incredible things. So even though his overall doesn't look that great, and right now you might think he's an absolute bum, He's going for 50 goals this season, and I think there's a good chance he gets it. Now with Darnell Richmond on the top line alongside Nathan MacKinnon, the Colorado Avalanche are dominating. A 48-28-6 record. We're going to be third in the entire league. And Nathan MacKinnon, he was pretty good this season. 124 points. But the most disappointing thing about this is Darnell Richmond, he really didn't do too much. 51 goals, 15 assists, 66 points. I mean, I'm not going to complain about 51 goals. That was certainly a dominant season from Darnell, including 9 game-winning goals. But I was just expecting more. Like when I saw Nathan MacKinnon picking up 124 points, I was thinking my man Darnell Richmond was going to have like 70, maybe even 80 goals. And then to make things even worse, when the postseason came around, we're getting swept in the first round to Nashville. So it's clear that none of that success that we saw in the regular seasons translated into the postseason. Like we're getting smoked in the first round. That's something you don't want to see. Meanwhile, Darnell Richmond in the postseason, 2 goals for 2 points. He's taken 14 shots. The regular season is going to be carrying Richmond in regards to his attribute upgrades. He's going to be receiving 203 this season, but very few of those upgrades are coming from his postseason performance. Now, the first thing we're going to do with the upgrades that Darnell Richmond's receiving is we're going to max out 3 attributes. We're going to max out his body checking and get that up to a 99. After maxing out body checking, how about we max out his puck control? We get that to a 99 as well. Look at that overall climb. He's now up to a 58, but we're not done yet, because now the next thing we're going to do is upgrade his strength. We're going to get that to a 99 as well. Darnell Richmond might be looking at a 70 overall heading into next season, and that's going to be the case. He's up to a 78 overall. No, that's a little bit ridiculous. So we're going to upgrade one more attribute. We're left with 14 points. I guess we could spend 8 of that on deking and get that up to a 99. And then with our final 6 points, how about we use that on aggressiveness? We'll get that up to a 42. So Darnell Richmond's going to be skipping the 40 overall club. He's skipping the 50 overall club, and he's skipping the 60 overall club. He's up to a 79 overall. And I think there's a chance that we even see Richmond get some power play time this season. But which power play is Darnell Richmond going to be dominating with? Well, it looks like he's going to be joining the Montreal Canadiens. He's going to have Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield at his side. And that actually might not help Darnell too much, because Cole Caulfield might start taking a lot of shots away from Darnell. So I guess we'll see how that's going to work out for us. Now, because I don't want Cole Caulfield taking shots away from Darnell Richmond, what I'm going to do is have Richmond play on the second line alongside Demidov. Demidov and Richmond as our second line. This might be one of the best second lines in the league because of these two guys right here. Kirby Dach's here as well, but we're more focused on Demidov and Richmond, the dynamic duo that we didn't know we needed. Now, I had a feeling that this was going to be the year. With Darnell Richmond playing with Demidov and the Montreal Canadiens first line looking spectacular, I thought it was finally time for us to win a Stanley Cup. But I hate to spoil it, unfortunately that didn't happen this season. Richmond, 52 goals, 7 assists for 59 points, but a career best 328 shots. He's slowly getting back into his prime. Richmond's dominating the NHL. That's something that you love to see, and that's something you expect every season. Meanwhile, when it comes to the postseason, it was a heartbreaking loss for the Montreal Canadiens, falling in the conference finals to the Carolina Hurricanes, who would lose to the Vegas Golden Knights. But although it was a disappointing loss for the Montreal Canadiens, when it comes to Darnell Richmond's numbers, those weren't looking too bad. 11 goals in just 19 games, 1 assist as well. He took 82 shots. This incredible season right here is going to result in 282 attribute upgrades, and with all those attribute upgrades, I think there's a chance Darnell Richmond rejoins the 90 overall club. Now you might be wondering, what exactly does 282 attribute upgrades mean for Darnell? Well, that means he's going to be able to max out 4 attributes. So we're looking at endurance, that's now up to a 99. We'll move on to agility next. We'll get that up to a 99, and with that reaching a 99 overall, Darnell Richmond's going to be reaching an 82. But we still have 2 more attribute upgrades we can max out. Balance is going to be the next one. We'll get that all the way up to a 99, and with that reaching a 99 rating, Darnell Richmond's reaching a 90 overall. But of course, we are still not done quite yet. Hand-eye, let's get that up to a 99, and let's improve Darnell's overall a little bit more. And then with our remaining 30 attribute upgrades, we'll get poise up to a 66. Darnell Richmond is now a 95 overall, one of the best players in the NHL. And what this likely means is Darnell Richmond is only 2 seasons away from getting back to his peak form and reaching a 99 overall. Now, what exactly does that mean? He only has 2 more seasons to win a Stanley Cup. Once he's a 99 overall, we're not simulating any more seasons. Darnell Richmond's going to have to win a Stanley Cup in these next 2 years. Now, there is one simple solution and one thing that would make this incredibly easy for us. Let's just land on the Florida Panthers. But instead of landing on Florida, we're going to land on the Pittsburgh Penguins instead. But you know what? This could be an elite team for us, because that means Sidney Crosby and Darnell are playing on the same line together. They're going to be playing playing on the same team. Not only is Darnell going to have a chance to get his first Stanley Cup, but Sidney Crosby might be walking away with another. Now, there's a lot of new things happening this season. Number one, Darnell's on a new team. He's joined the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he's going to be the highest rated player. But on top of that, Darnell is finally going to get some number one power play minutes. Darnell's never played on the power play before. I shouldn't say that though, because I think he has got a handful of second power play unit minutes, but he has never sat on the number one unit before. He has never been that guy until now. Richmond's finally going to be the top player on the team. He's going to be the number one option. I know for a fact after this season, we're going to be able to max all of his attributes to a 99. Darnell's one historic season away from getting back to his previous greatness. Alright, now I'm very surprised. Darnell Richmond playing number one line minutes and number one power play minutes, and all you could do is finish 8th in the entire league, a 45-33-4 record. What are y'all doing? I expected a lot more from you guys. Sidney Crosby, 114 points. Darnell Richmond, 73 goals, 38 assists for 111 points, 372 shots taken this season, 12 game-winning goals. Yeah, safe to say Darnell Richmond's back in his prime. But how do I know exactly that Darnell Richmond's back in his prime? Well, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to do something that Darnell's been waiting to do his entire career, hoist the Stanley Cup once again, taking down the Calgary Flames in a 7-game series. Why on earth are the Calgary Flames this dominant? I have no clue. They have now made it to multiple Stanley Cup finals, but they're not going to be winning this one. The Pittsburgh Penguins, led by Darnell Richmond and Sidney Crosby, are going to be hoisting the Stanley Cup. And of course, Darnell had to be a key piece to that team. 25 goals in 25 games, 5 assists for 30 points, 122 shots taken during this postseason run. Not only did Darnell just win a Stanley Cup, but through all the attribute upgrades that he acquired, which is 463 if you were interested, he is now back up to a 99 overall. We're going to go max out all of his attributes, and then he's going to go on one last run with one last team. So Richmond was able to do the impossible. He recovered from every severe injury you can imagine. ACL tears, MCL tears, PCL tears, 6 concussions, and most importantly, that sprained finger. He was able to recover from all of those injuries. He's returned to a 99 overall, the best player in the NHL, but there's one more thing he has to do. He has to go win one more Stanley Cup. But I guess the real question is, which team is Darnell going to be winning his final Stanley Cup with? If he was able to win one with the Pittsburgh Penguins, I feel like it'd be really fitting to win one with the Washington Capitals. If you can get Sidney Crosby one more cup, how about you get Ovi one more as well? But I'm not allowed to decide that. We have to go to the wheel. So where is Darnell going to be playing his final season? Now that he's returned to a 99 overall, where is he going to take his talents? To the Toronto Maple Leafs. He wants to prove that he is the greatest player of all time. And where better to prove that than with the Toronto Maple Leafs by ending this team's drought? So Darnell's back to the Hall of Fame where he's been in the past. 99s across the board. The greatest power forward and the greatest player of all time. But can you win the Toronto Maple Leafs a Stanley Cup? Probably not. Even though you are by far the greatest player of all time and nobody can even compete with you, I don't even think you're good enough to save this franchise. But I guess we're about to find out. Now, after hearing that Darnell was going to be joining the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's no surprise to find them at the top of the league. A 56-20-6 record. This team was scoring goals like crazy, and of course, Darnell had to lead the way. 69 goals and 65 assists for 134 points, 375 shots taken this season, and he shot 18.4% in the process. Now, it was never a doubt in anyone's mind that Darnell Richmond was going to produce during the regular season, and the Toronto Maple Leafs would win games during the regular season. The question was, when the lights were the brightest, would the Toronto Maple Leafs step up? And of course the answer is no. Why on earth did you think the Toronto Maple Leafs would step up? You stupid fool. Obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to fold when it matters. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs we're talking about that are losing in 5 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Darnell Richmond did everything he could. He did, but he also didn't, because 6 goals and 4 assists for 10 points, that's not the Darnell Richmond we know and love. That is not the best version of Darnell Richmond that we have seen. However, this was the expected version of Darnell Richmond, because once you add him to the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs curse hits. It ruins Darnell Richmond. It destroys him. He might have been the most dominant player during the regular season and the best player in the NHL, but he got a little bit of Toronto Maple Leafs DNA in him, and then what happened when it mattered most? Darnell Richmond completely collapsed. You can't blame Darnell for this. You have to blame the Toronto Maple Leafs culture.